COVID-19 is still amok, masks are required, we can't meet in large groups, and we have a show coming up. Let's talk about it. Hey everyone, it's Connor Knuckles. I'm the host for Late Nights at the Driftwood, and I'm here to talk about our current production, Constellations. I had the opportunity to sit down with the director, Brad Duffy, a few days ago, and here's how it went. So how has your experience working with Zoom as a platform for production been?
We haven't started using Zoom until rehearsal, so we've been meeting in person because our group is small enough. Mm-hmm. So all of our meetings have been in person, so I haven't had to rehearse through Zoom. So that's the good news for me because in Zoom there's this lag, and when you've got people in different places, it just drives you friggin' crazy. So I've been lucky that way. It's one of the reasons why I picked the show with just two people, because I get three people together. That meets any deal. As long as we're practicing social distancing, we're okay.
All right. Cool. So with that though, have you guys practiced like streaming yet, or done
we were going to practice? We were going to do our first practice stream this evening, but we've got some technical issues with sound and with lights that we have to solve. So we'll do. My goal is that we'll do a practice Zoom by Wednesday.
By Wednesday, okay.
Either within the next 3 days, we'll hope to do a practice Zoom session. Like I said, we were going to do it tonight, but there are some issues that it makes no sense to do it until those issues are resolved. So hopefully we'll get them within the next day or two.
And then with that, you mentioned you only have two cast members in here. How have you been able to meet in person with the loss? So like how many people are typically at rehearsals working on the show?
Just been three of us, literally until last week. Last week, I introduced a stage manager into the process, who will also run the light board, because I wanted Natasha just to start getting used to the board, and then last Thursday was what we added in two follow spotter operators, because the whole show is being actor lit by two follow spots. So we introduced them starting last Thursday, and then we'll work through some tech issues this week, and then we tech it this weekend. So we open soon. Yikes!
And with social distancing, so the show, these characters do have some pretty intimate moments together as well. How has that been challenging to work with?
Well, we've had to make some adjustments.
Okay.
So that there's some things that the show calls for that it wasn't really logical for us to do. So I just met with the actors and said, okay, this is the effect that we need to get. How can we do that and do what and have you feel comfortable with what you're doing? So we found some compromises and they seem to work, and we'll continue to try to refine those. So we haven't been impacted too much, but a little bit.
And now kind of getting into Constellations. So what was kind of your thought process in selecting the show?
Well, I knew you were going to ask that question. So there's actually kind of a funny story there, because throughout all this craziness, Ben sent out an email says, well, what we need to do is we need to pick small cast shows, and he was doing all this criteria, and half jokingly I emailed back, Ben, I have the perfect show, Constellation, 2 actors, 2 costumes, no set, 2 props, and a guaranteed audience of 15. And then from there, we really did get into it, and it's a show that I love. I first saw it at Seattle Rep, and I just immediately fell in love with it. And then I said, okay, if you really want to go with this is a perfect show to stream, because you can do it. You don't need a set. Each actor's wearing whatever clothes they have on. So you don't need any backstage people. You can literally do the show with a soundboard operator, a light board operator, a Zoom operator, 2 follow spots, and the 2 actors. Boom, there you go.
How would you have done the show differently if you didn't have to do it through Zoom?
We're actually pretty dang close to how it would be. To be honest with you, I mean, what I think what is interesting is that uh, the biggest change is probably visibly what it looks like lighting wise via Zoom versus being in person. There's a we discovered, it's one of the reasons why I wanted to do tests early on. We discovered that if we ran what would normally be considered regular light levels for a show, that it didn't work because the faces were just washed out and you weren't getting expressions. So we're literally running light cues at about 50% of what the normal levels would be. And if you look at it live, it looks extremely underlit. But when you look at it through the camera lens, so if you look at it through what the Zoom audience will see, it looks dramatically different. So that, I think that's one of the big things that we've discovered in doing this. So adjusting the lights, the idea behind the show and how it is staged really hasn't changed a great deal. I might have done a little bit more with some effects behind them, but I was just trying to keep the cost low, and I figured out a way to do that. So it's all working pretty well.
With the light, I've seen some of the light displays, and it looks like it was some pretty cool designs in there. What was some of the creative decisions you made with the lights on why certain cues go off where, why you use certain colors even?
Well, virtually the first line in the script, before even the script starts, it talks about the play being split into 3 universes. And then what you're constantly doing is you're jumping back and forth between these universes. And so early on, I said, I need to help my audience out. I need to help them know, to help them out what's going on here. And so what I've done is I've set a particular light look for each universe. Because what's happening in this show is we're seeing a multitude of ways, an unlimited really number of ways that a relationship might play out. So at the beginning of this show, we literally see the show start maybe 5 different times, but each has a different outcome, and each of those outcomes has a different outcome, and each of those outcomes have a different outcome, and so it becomes an infinite number of possibilities that happens, the way this relationship can play out. And so what I said is, well, maybe if I take each of these universes and I give them a background look, so that pretty soon they'll be, oh, these people are now here, oh, these people are now there, oh, these people are here. That will help them follow the plot line a little bit more. But it's interesting because then what happens is you have what we call these sudden breaks that take you from universe to universe. And so then it was a matter of, all right, how do I want to make that happen? And that went through about 4 different variations before we came up with something we thought would reinforce it. And then we'll be adding sound to that, which hopefully will even accent it even more. And then by doing all these things lighting wise, it said, to make sure that the audience saw those lighting shifts, that's when the idea of lighting the show with just 2 follow spots, so that we're not wiping out everything else that's on the stage. Typically, the area lights would just kind of wash out all this color stuff that I'm doing, but by just doing the 2 follow spots and not having any area light up other than that, then that's allowing these changes to be more visible and hopefully more helpful to the audience.
What do you think is your favorite, or I guess more interesting part of the show? The string theory portion of every choice you make can have an infinite amount of outcomes, or is it the love story that you find is a little more interesting of this?
Well, yeah, those 2 are so intertwined with one another. What I love about this show is every time we walk into rehearsal and we talk about a moment, we come up with a different plausibility of what's happening in that moment. And so literally what I've said to the actors on numerous occasions is, you have to treat each one of these moments, whether it lasts 5 seconds or 5 minutes, as a separate total piece of theater within itself, because you've got to make clear decisions and play those decisions and have those decisions work totally within themselves. And if you do that, then you're going to have a successful experience, and your performance will be very strong. But if you don't do that, then I think it'll get a little muddy. It'll be harder to follow. So it's just important for the actors to make good, strong choices and play each moment, because some of our scenes literally last 5 seconds. Some of them last, then the longest one may last 4 or 5 minutes. Well, you've got to play each one of those as if it's a complete play within itself.
I was talking to Julayne a little bit about the show, and she said that this is, and I quote, this is the hardest show she's ever had to do. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, because on the surface, we joke this, well, you got 3 universes, you're saying the same thing over and over again, so this should be an easy show to memorize, right? Wrong. Because there, as any good script, there are subtle differences between each one of them. Okay. And then again, you have to go back and you have to make choices. And like I said, we go on one, and it's, well, what happens if we play this? Oh, okay. And then the next time we'll go in and we might have a different idea. Oh, well, let's try that. And it changes how things play in that scene. But that's the beauty of the show, because it is just, each scene is just absolutely unique within itself. And that uniqueness, that variation of how this might play out, totally impacts this love relationship that this couple has. But I'm not surprised that she would say that, because it's because of the unlimited possibilities that make it so hard.
So going back to the Zoom platform as well, I want to just kind of like talk about, just really quick, about the future of the theater in general. Do you see, but if COVID isn't, let's say COVID goes on for another 2 years, and this is kind of becomes our norm for the next 2 years.
Sure.
How do you see this platform? Do you think this platform has truly served its purpose for live theater?
Well, I think it certainly can. I think one of the things we're trying to discover right now is, to what degree can we do it? And of course, we're doing it with Constellations. And as soon as we close Constellations, we're going to go into rehearsal on the Gin Game. The Gin Game is another 2-person play that will be Zoomed live. But it'll be a very different look than Constellations, because that'll have regular scene light, unlike Zoom. But I think we're trying to explore, what can we do. I think there's a level evolution here where we might where we're running off of one fixed camera for Constellations, and we'll probably do the same for the Gin Game. If we explore beyond that point, we might explore to 2 cameras, because we have a device that will allow us to dissolve back and forth. But we're not having to do that with this show. We won't have to do it with Gin Game, would be my guess. But we could certainly build on that. So I think what we want to try to do is, we want to see how smooth can we make this run with Constellations, and then off of that, try to improve what we're doing so Gin Game even works better. And then, depending upon what shows are picked after that point, because we seem to be in a constant state of change, what's going to happen then? It's because right now I'm still hoping that I'm going to be able to do Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime, which is now tentatively scheduled for May or April, to open up at the end of April. I think the Zoom platform that we would use for that show would be radically different than either the Zoom platform that we're using for either Constellations or Gin Game. I could easily see us trying to use 2 cameras and doing some dissolves back and forth. But that's we've got we've got to jump our first hurdle. Our first hurdle is Constellations, and let's see what happens with that. What I'm worried about is obviously the delay, and I want to make sure that my I'm on my battery's low, so there you go. So I'm worried about the delay and how that's going to impact, and that's what we'll find out the next couple of days, and that we already know there's a delay between what's happening live on stage and what happens on the monitor. But as long as we've got everything tied together, as long as the feed that's going out, as long as the sound and the video is in sync with one another, and we're not having gaps, then I think we'll be okay. But that's all conjecture at this point because we've not done this before.
Right.
It's one of the reasons why I really pushed hard for us to, if we're going to stream, let's have the equipment that allows us to be able to do it, because otherwise we shouldn't be streaming. I mean, there's no point in putting out a bad product because no one's going to watch a bad product.
Mm-hmm. So now, completely opposite scenario. COVID ends tomorrow. Do you think Zoom is still a serviceable platform to do theater on, with live theater going on as well?
Well, what I've told several people is I think it's possible for, if Driftwood wanted to, is we could go to where we could have people in the audience and still stream for people who wanted to see something but were either afraid to come out or were housebound but wanted to see something. So I think it's possible to do both at the same time. And although right now we commandeer the auditorium with all of our equipment because there's not going to be anybody in the auditorium, what I said is you could take that equipment and you could set it up to be in the balcony, and then you could be zooming. You could be zooming productions from the balcony, and still have a live audience down below, which I think would be really cool to do that, because then you didn't have the live audience reaction going along with what's happening. I think the biggest, obviously, as I've already alluded to, the biggest challenge with that is finding a balance between with the lighting, so that the audience, the live audience, is getting a fair treatment of what it looks like, but we're not destroying it for what a Zoom audience would look like. And again, that's trial and error. So and it's trial and error for us on Constellations, trying to find that balance that makes sure that we see the faces, that we can see the reactions, but we're not overpowering and getting everything washed out. And that would be the challenge. But I think it's absolutely possible to do both. And it would be my suggestion that's what should be done, because at that point the equipment is there. It doesn't cost us anything to do that. So why wouldn't you try? And if you could reach 10, 15 people, that's just an extra 10, 15 people who are seeing your shows.
Last question here: why should people come see Constellations?
It is a fabulous piece of theater, and you've got two fabulous actors, and I guarantee you will find yourself going, what is going on here? And it will intrigue you beyond belief, because it's, as it says on the poster, it's one man, one woman, and infinite possibilities.